Why am I showing you this? The biggest mistake we've ever made in the dairy industry is that we let you, the consumer, learn from them, the activists, even on these hard to talk about subjects. I want you to learn from me. So we have a really disappointing situation with the cow. So Dottie is one of our subscriber cows. And I posted in her group, she got bred because she was in heat, and she was in a very, very strong heat. And if you guys don't know, when cows exhibit strong heats, they get their hormones literally drive them crazy. I mean, they do a lot of stupid stuff. And cows, they will let cows mount their back over and over and over to the point where it injures them, or they can fall down. And we have good footing. The rubber matting in the barn assures we have good footing, and if they do fall down, the rubber matting gives them a cushion to land on. But I'm suspicious Dottie got injured somehow. Dottie laid down in a stall, and we actually haven't seen her get back up yet. We've tried encouraging her, we've tried tapping her. I IV'd her with some dextrose. I thought maybe there was some ketosis going on. We did give her a little bit of calcium in case she had a little bit of a lack of that. She's on Banamine, which is an NSAID pain reliever. We got her on some aspirin. But when she tries to get up, she just acts like she doesn't know how, which is very suspicious of like a spine injury. I think like I said, when they're in heat, if she got mounted just over and over and over and the hair was rubbed off her hooks and pin bones. And you guys need to know that's nothing that's farmer caused. Some activists might say, you know, that's because of hormones we give them, etc. etc. No, Dottie just naturally, 21 days after her last breeding, re-entered her estrus cycle, re-entered, you know, coming into estrus, being in heat, and her, you know, the hormones, the pheromones in the air just drive them nuts. They are consumed by those hormones. And again, I think she got too rowdy, and I think she got injured. So what we're going to go do here is something called a hip lift, a hip vice, some people call it. You'll notice a cow's hip bones protrude quite a bit. And I'll show you the hip lift. Basically, we can open up the hip lift, put it around those hip bones, and squeeze it together and actually pick them up by their hips. The hips are actually a very good point to pick up a cow. They're a very good anchor for that animal. It's like picking you up kind of by your haunches, by your hips. Imagine if you had something sticking out that we could just kind of grab you by. Now, I'm not saying it's comfortable, like it's like being in a massage chair. I have no doubt that the feeling isn't, you know, super pleasant. I want to assure you it's far from painful. Now, if we get it too tight or leave it on her for way too long, it could cause some bruising. But their hips, their hip bones right there are a very good anchor point when they need help. So what we're going to do is put the hip lift on her, try to lift her up for a few minutes, and just see if she can get good footing beneath her. Cow in question, this is Miss Dottie. So when I said the hair was rubbed off her pin bones and stuff, and it was a little bit worse than this a couple days ago, you could see a little bit more places where the hair was rubbed off. But I think that was part of her injury. And she isn't catching the loops when she tries to stand up. When she tries to stand up, she just flails a little bit belligerently. It's kind of disappointing when we see that because, again, it is suspicious there is a spine injury here. And I expect them to look a little bit more bony here, honestly. It's just kind of the way dairy cows look. And this looks a little bit too puffy. It's like I said, we're suspicious something's going on up here, which honestly doesn't say good things. So these are the hip bones right here. These are the pin bones, we call them. These are the hip bones. So what we do is that vise goes right under here and right under here, and we can basically hook onto that bone and pick them up. This is going to look like an intense process, but it's something that we've done before, and it's something that has the animal's best interest in mind. This is what the hip vise looks like. You can see there's a loop. On either side of that loop is just some rubber hosing, which just provides a little bit of padding. But what we do is we situate that beneath the hip bone on both sides, and then we can kind of squeeze it shut with that lever. I didn't record the exact moment we picked her up with the hip lift. I had to be paying attention and not be on my phone. But in a little bit here, we are going to take that hip lift off, and we're going to see how well she can stand by herself. But like I said, we got her picked up. She's standing on her own, but there's some things here we need to keep in mind. Number one, we're looking at that right rear leg, and we can tell that she clearly does not like putting weight on it. Another thing here I don't like to see is you can see how right above her toes there, how that bends a little bit. That's not a good sign for the health and well-being of her leg. It is indicative that there might be some sort of injury, whether in her leg or closer to her spine. The good news here is Dottie does have an appetite. She is standing there eating on her own, but she does not like to put weight on that right leg. She did walk in a little bit of a circle here. We are going to see how well she feels, if she might want to walk over and get a drink of water. Another good sign for Dottie's overall attitude and well-being is that she does want to get a drink of water. So, as you can tell, we had her up. She was drinking, but she decided to kind of come back over here and lay down. She's very tired. That leg's clearly uncomfortable. So what we do now is we have a really, really big bucket. Basically, we bundle the cow's legs and head up. We roll them into the bucket, and we're going to take her up to the other barn where there's big open pack. If you've ever wondered how we move a 1,600-pound animal who can't move herself, you're going to find out. For everybody wondering, it is worth pointing out again, we have rubber matting in this floor. These grooves are 3/4 of an inch deep. Sorry, they're not quite that deep. But this flooring does provide very, very good traction for these cows. The benefit that the bedded pack offers is a little bit deeper footing, deeper than you'd even find, outside for cows, say in a pasture, because I know somebody's going to make that comment. But the deep bedded pack has just really good footing for an animal who has a slight injury. More importantly, back here in the milking herd, you can see we have cows coming and going, and cows are not gentle to other cows who have an injury. With tomorrow being herd health, we are going to have main general population animals getting sorted back here. What we don't want is a cow who is injured being around cows being introduced into this pen because they will fight. The last thing we want is fighting around an injured animal. This is how you load a 1,600-pound animal into a skid loader bucket. You'll see she has a halter on, and we tied that to her leg so that her body is a little bit more compact. She's curled around, and she doesn't flail around and injure herself while we're trying to help her move. It's important to remember we're being as gentle as we can with an animal this size, but she still doesn't fully understand what's going on as we try to help her. Here I'm tipping her up a little bit just to allow the bucket to get under her a little bit farther, and then me and Dad do come around to the other side, and we try to push gently as we aggressively can to get her to tip back into the bucket. Don has her in the skid loader bucket. We're going to open up the dry cow gate here, put her in here. Seems callous, guys, but this is how you move a 1,600-pound animal, because we can't lift them up. Here she is, up in this pen, safe and sound. We'll keep her up here till she's feeling better. We'll give her food and water in front of her, try to nurse her back to health here. And again, another good sign here is she is kind of chewing at some of these corn stalks. So she's demonstrating an appetite. And since animals can't talk to us, we can't verbally communicate what's going on. We have to look for cues, physical cues. And an appetite is a very important cue to an animal's mental well-being and just their overall health and their well-being. So what does this mean for Dottie now that we moved her up to the dry cow barn? This tells us, and should tell everyone, that Dottie's time here is limited. So Dottie being up there cannot get milked anymore. And my concern about leaving her down here in the milk cow barn is not for Dottie, it's not because of Dottie, it's because of other cows. So cows are not this gentle kumbaya creature, everyone's going to come around and help nurse her back to health. Many times, and especially other herd type animals like dairy cows, an animal like that would just get abandoned. Because they're a threat, and the herd would rather the predator get to that animal instead of the herd. So obviously we're not going to just abandon Dottie. But I'm concerned with other cows, like I said previously, and general population coming in and hurting her. But moving her up there means she can't get milked anymore. So I've been very open, very transparent, that cows are a resource. The world's most important resource, food. Not to mention the dozens of life-saving byproducts they can become too when they leave this farm. And that is where Dottie is going. Our goal at this point is for Dottie to leave this farm, to get her healthy enough to where she can leave this farm. Because the other option is I have to put her down. And then that's a waste of a resource. And that means we weren't able to nurse her back to health. So here's the funny thing. It seems counterproductive, right? To nurse her back to health just to put her back down. But we have to understand we are stewards of these animals, and these animals are meant to be food, meant to be a resource. Dottie's over 7 years old. I don't care what any activist says. That's far longer than cows live on their own. I don't care about that. They live 20 years bull crap. They never would live that long. The way I put her down and the way a packing plant, slaughterhouse, would put her down is virtually identical. It's pain-free, lightning fast. They have no idea it happened. None. And at the slaughterhouses, they're kept calm and peaceful up until the moment it happens. They have no idea. Now, if she were to stay here and just live out her merry days, however long that might be, it could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months, I will have to be the one to put her down. Because when she does start to fail, when her body does start to fail, that is cruel to let her just suffer and die a slow, painful death, which would mean I would have to be the one to put her down. And that would mean she only stayed here and only died that long, slow death because I was selfish, because I wanted to keep her. Because of us, she lived a longer life, a healthier life, and a happier life, and it's our goal now to nurse her back to health, and we will give her a more humane death. We are stewards of these animals in life and death. Final thoughts, because someone might say it. Why would you dare show this stuff? Some activist is going to grab this and run rampant with it and show it in all their activist groups. I show this stuff because it's real, and it happens. And some activist somewhere has probably tried to show them footage like this, and then we're left backpedaling, playing defense. We show this because this is our part of being a steward of these animals. We are taking care of them, like I said, in life, when things aren't going well, when things are going well, and we make sure they're treated humanely in their last moments too. This is what happens. Not very much. Very, very, very rarely does this happen. And don't let any activist tell you otherwise.